Good afternoon and welcome to the HUD Section 811 Project Rental Assistance PRA webcast, and thank you for joining us today. I am Priya Jayachandran, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Multifamily Housing Programs in the Office of Housing here at HUD. Today's webcast is organized into two parts. In the first part, I'm joined by my colleague Jennifer Ho, Senior Advisor to the Secretary, and Mike Smith with the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, who will discuss the HUD HHS Department of Health partnership and the important role that affordable, accessible housing plays as a social determinant of health and the specific programs that HUD and HHS work on together. The second part of the webcast will feature the Section 811 PRA program. Let's get started and welcome Jennifer and Mike. I am pleased you were able to join us today, and thank you.
Great to be here.
Nice to be here.
Jennifer, both at HUD and in some of your previous positions, you've worked at the intersection of health and housing. Can you tell us a little bit about why this intersection is so important?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to be here with the webinar. And Mike, thanks for coming in from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid to be with us today. You know, whether you're a child, whether you're an individual with disabilities that's in an institution or on the street, for people who are aging and want to stay in their own homes, figuring out how to get the right mix of housing where people want to live and that they can stay in and getting the services that support them is really key to people having better quality of life. And as we've learned more and more in the research, just better spending in terms of their interaction with the healthcare system. You know, for young kids, you know, we say a lot that the zip code determines what happens, building off of work that Raj Chetty and others have done. But also we know for individuals with disabilities and seniors, people experiencing homelessness, having a home and having a safe home that they can stay in is really key. And so a big part of the work that HUD and HHS have done together through the course of this administration has really been trying to figure out how to build on that and make it easier for communities to do it.
It must have been really exciting then to be at HUD over the past few years when this was such a hot topic and an important issue.
I mean, it's been a dream. And, you know, really, I think I've worked on these issues for quite a long time, but now I think we're really at a point where not only do the folks who are trying to create more supportive housing really understand how to begin to navigate the types of, the way that the services world, the way the healthcare world works, but we're also finding increasingly more and more folks like Mike and people who run Medicaid programs at states and large hospital systems and others really want to learn more about housing, that they're understanding that they can't just write a prescription for housing for somebody who needs it, and it's going to require great partnerships.
That's great. I know that in my time in multifamily, the work that you've done and that the Secretary has emphasized has really percolated down to the programs that we've run, and we've really put an emphasis on connecting our residents and our rental assistance programs to those other important aspects of our residents' lives that do impact their outcomes. And just a few examples, we put out a few weeks ago a notice that offers incentives to our assisted housing owners who are willing to provide a preference in their units for homeless families, giving homeless families an opportunity to have a higher chance of moving into stable, affordable housing. We also put up on our webpage on the HUD Exchange for owners more information on the preference, including videos and testimonials by other owners and step-by-step instructions. Last fall, we also issued a NOFA for the Seniors and Services demonstration in elderly housing that is modeled on Vermont's SASH program. We had an overwhelming number of respondents. We were really pleased with the response to the NOFA, and we're currently in the process of scoring and selecting awardees, and fingers crossed, we're hoping to make announcements very soon. Right now, I'd like to bring Mike Smith from CMS into the discussion. Last year, the Office of Multifamily worked closely with CMS's Innovation Accelerator Program, IAP, and Mike's going to talk a little bit more about what that is and that partnership. I personally thought that the 8 states selected for the IAP last year did a terrific job developing their action plans, but I would love to hear from you. What was CMS's take on the partnership?
Well, thank you. I just want to say how pleased I am to be here as well. The Innovation Accelerator Program is a unique program in the sense that we use some of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovations funding to help work on this project, which is a Center for Medicaid and CHIP Services, which is a component within CMS. To work on this program. And the Innovation Accelerator Program is really focused on working with states to help educate them or work with them around community integration for individuals with disabilities and seniors in the Medicaid program. And so we had a tremendous opportunity to work, and we've been working with HUD over the years around the Section 811 work that we're going to talk about in a little bit here. But the Innovation Accelerator Program, because this topic was such an important topic for states, who helped us design our community integration track for the partnership. We went ahead and developed this partnership in conjunction with our partners at HUD as well as SAMHSA. We received resources from both to accelerate this effort, no pun intended, in hopes that we could help states and local parties make connections, make those partnerships between housing programs and the state Medicaid program. What we've seen over time is development of tremendous partnerships that have come out of some of the other programs that we've developed. But this is an opportunity to formalize that, and those action plans that you mentioned in your earlier comment was an opportunity for the states to lay a foundation with their local housing authorities as well as their housing finance organizations at the state level, and develop that partnership that will lead to really the connection between the beneficiaries that need our services and supports and the individuals in their housing. With regard to the folks that we work with in terms of Medicaid, we work a lot with the individuals who are leaving institutional settings. We've had a tremendous need for housing for those individuals. And so that's sort of where we started our relationship, and the Innovation Accelerator Program has taken that to the next level as a platform for us to create a partnership at the local level. And I think, we're going to talk a little bit about it, I think, here in the next couple of minutes, but I think the partnership there also sort of reflects the partnership that's happened at the federal level. So we really want to create and start to use language that's understandable from all aspects, all program sides.
Thanks, Mike. I think you hit the nail on the head, and for us, a lot of it has come down to that partnership, because so much of this work of thinking about housing as a platform for affecting our residents' lives can't be done in HUD alone, and partnership with HHS has really been critical to the work and the important programs we've been running. Jennifer, you've been the point person for HUD these past few years on the partnership with HHS. What's your perspective?
Well, first of all, I think it is incredible how under both Secretary Castro and before him, Secretary Donovan, the commitments to this issue and this commitment to reach across to the secretaries of HHS in order to say, what are your priorities? Here are our priorities, and how do they overlap? That leadership from the top down has really supported the work that we've done all along. It's very easy for housers and healthcare people to be in a room together and not understand a word that the other entity says, because we 202 and 811, and we have all of our LIHTC, we have all of our terminology, and then you go over to the healthcare folks and they're talking about their 1115s and their HCBSs. I think that what is special about the work that we've done together throughout the course of the administration is that we have made the commitment to take the time to really figure out how to solve problems that we prioritize in common, and how to learn enough about each other's language that we can figure out how to make things work better together. I mean, anybody who has developed a unit of supportive housing, whether through HUD-funded programs, our 811 for individuals with disabilities, 202 for seniors, our homeless programs, it's not for the faint of heart. The amount of financing that you have to put together just on the housing side is complicated. But we've been asking folks to learn Medicaid and figure out how to use Medicaid as a source of service funding. And so for the housers, that's like traveling to forget a foreign country, it's like traveling to another planet. And I think likewise, I think of some of my early trips out to Baltimore and the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, just the fact that unlike Medicare or Medicaid, where if you're eligible, you get it, with housing, it's much more complicated than that. And so making the commitment to figure out how to make housing and healthcare programs line up so that people get the services that they need in their homes, and really trying to live with the constraints that our various programs have, as opposed to just being upset that my program doesn't work more like Mike's and Mike's program doesn't work more like ours, but really trying to figure out how to make it work together. And I think because, as you were saying, because we've made that commitment at a federal level, we're hearing from states and local communities that it's making it easier for them to know how they can weave these pieces together to do more supportive housing. So I guess that's how I feel about the relationship, Mike. But how's it working for you?
Well, Jennifer, we've over the time that we've worked together in numerous presentations, we struggle in Medicaid with the fact that we are not a housing organization. We do not develop housing. We do not pay for housing, and that's really been sort of the construct that we struggle with, because we are the service. We support people with services in their homes and in the community. And so we struggle with how do we work with housing organizations to develop meaningful, affordable, accessible housing for individuals that are going to need supportive services. And so that person who's transitioning from a nursing home, who needs to have personal care services coming in on a daily basis, might need some assistance even before they get out of the nursing facility to establish their credit, look at their credit history, look at their utility, their background around what happened with their utilities in the past. Do they even have their documentation for identity and so forth? How are we going to move them out without those documents and the information in place? So, we can work on that, but then what is the point of doing that if we don't actually have a physical home for somebody to integrate to, right? And so that's really, where I think this has been a tremendous boost in working together with you, is trying to identify how we can make those, and speak in a language that's clear and understandable, that when we support somebody who has medical needs and has a disability coming in, they need to meet certain criteria within Medicaid in order to get those services. But in order for maybe a housing organization to want to invest in housing, they want to make sure that they're coming out with the things that they need, or if somebody's coming into their units, that they have the supports they need. That's not their expertise, right? So the Medicaid Medicaid side of the equation and being able to provide the services in an effective manner is critical. So I think we've been trying to talk in plain language and plain talk in terms of presenting these services and how they can support individuals coming back to the community or in the community, and it's been a tremendous partnership from that perspective.
I think one of the things that we've also laid the groundwork for is showing that you can match data between who lives in HUD-assisted housing and what's happening with their Medicare and their Medicaid claims, costs, and outcomes. And I think that by having matched these together, working through HHS's Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation and our Policy Development and Research team here, showing that we can match this is going to allow us to do a lot more in the future, like the Seniors and Services demo, and as we're going to talk about the 811 demonstration project, to show what happens over time when people get the right supports in their home as it relates to healthcare spending. And my hope is that that makes a compelling argument for why it is that we need more targeted investments in housing in order to help meet some of these needs. Managing healthcare costs over time is a national budget challenge, but understanding how housing fits into accomplishing that goal, I think is going to be really critical. So, I guess, from the early work on Money Follows the Person and the work that we've been doing together, I feel like folks at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid really understand now how housing fits into your own agenda. And do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I think really housing we see it as a platform for better health outcomes. We understand that beneficiaries need stable, affordable housing in order to receive these services and have a place that they call their own in a sense that, if we're providing personal assistance services for somebody, they're obviously going to have pretty significant needs, right? And so if we don't have an environment for them to actually receive that in, that's obviously going to be a huge barrier for their remaining healthy and in the community. They're going to be in and out of the ERs and the hospitals and the nursing facilities without stable, affordable housing. So I think that's where the agendas, cross over, and I think that the challenge has been to develop that housing, knowing that CMS and Medicaid is not in that space. So it's really, from that perspective, we've learned a lot from working with you.
Great. I want to thank you both. This has been a really fascinating discussion, and for me personally, relevant. I recently completed reading Matt Desmond's Evicted, and he makes the compelling argument that poverty doesn't necessarily cause housing vulnerability. Housing vulnerability often causes poverty, and then I'm reminded that one of our larger owners shared that among their residents, the average resident has 3 chronic health conditions. So it's just all intertwined, the vulnerability, the poverty, the health care, the need for housing, and I think that the most progress we're going to make is through partnerships like this. So thank you both. And also thank you, Jennifer, because we are going to pause for a little bit and then pivot shortly to the second part of the webcast, which will focus on our Section 811 PRA. So
before we do that, Priya, I want to thank you too, and I want to thank you for your service to HUD and to the nation. You've just been a spectacular partner here within HUD and on these issues. But Mike, before we let you get away, the second half of this is going to be a much deeper dive into what's happening with the Section 811 program, which I think really is one of the best examples of the partnership and the work that we've done together. So just curious for your take on our work together on Section 811 before you go.
Well, I just want to say thank you for letting and having us be partners in the effort. We had subject matter experts from CMS that worked with your team to develop the NOFA and the information that was in there to identify target populations and work closely with you to look and review the documents as they came in, and looking at the overall, partnerships that were required with state Medicaid programs out of the program. So I think it's been a tremendous opportunity for us to learn more about the programs that are here at HUD, but also for us to educate the partners on the housing side, particularly housing partners who may do other types of services and supports on the HUD side, for them to get exposed to what it is to be a healthcare or a Medicaid partner and provider in our service system. So I think it's been a tremendous learning opportunity for both of us.
Oh, great.
And thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to HUD today, and thanks for your partnership, and thanks for your commitment to these programs moving forward. We're just going to take a brief break while we bring in the second panel, and we'll be right back with you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Ho from HUD, and glad to be back for the second part of this webcast on Section 811 and our project-based rental assistance program update. And I'm joined by my HUD colleague, Katina Washington, but we're also really lucky to be joined today from the Maryland Multifamily Housing Department, Elaine Cornick, and also an owner and developer of affordable housing, Kathy Ebner, the president and CEO of Homes for America. Thank you so much for coming to HUD today to join us for this.
Happy to be here.
We were speaking in the last part with my friend Mike Smith over at the Center for Medicaid about how the Section 811 program has really helped us bring housing and Medicaid together in a new way, unlike programs that have been done in the past, and allow us to do more supportive housing. So I think what we're going to do is just start by, Katina, having you just walk through a little bit about where are we with this new and improved Section 811 program. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. And first, I'm just going to give like a brief overview of the Section 811 program. First, it was created under the Melville Act of 2010 to accelerate development of affordable, integrated housing options for vulnerable population. It also provides integrated permanent supportive housing for non-elderly persons with disabilities through state and housing services partnerships. And also what's very unique to this program is that it allows for state agencies to really target their populations, either people coming from institutions, homelessness, or other people coming out of group homes or nursing facilities, or those who are trying to address their Olmstead settlement agreements. As a result of the Melville Act, the department was able to fund 2 years worth of applications under the PRA program in fiscal year 2012 and fiscal year 2013 and a combined 14. We had about 40 states apply, which is pretty nationwide interest within the program. We awarded a total of 28 states plus the District of Columbia. So out of that NOFA, we wanted to really ensure that we were reaching and accomplishing some of the goals out of the Melville Act. And some of these goals was creating that partnership, as I mentioned earlier, between the State Housing Agency and the Human Service Agency as well. Wanted to ensure that they were going to work together. So we kind of made it mandatory within our notice of funding availability that this was a requirement in order to participate in the program. We also wanted to have states kind of come up with a replicable, innovative strategy to providing this type of housing. We wanted to see whether or not they were going to come up with some innovative strategies in order to do this type of work. We also wanted a way to increase the amount of units in a more sped up way or faster way. We wanted to see, instead of developing from brick and mortar to sort of just only providing this rental assistance. We also wanted to be more efficient and more effective in the way we use the housing and healthcare resources. So there's some kind of critical elements of the program. We kind of outline them into 3 parts. We have the capital, which the sources would be coming from either from the FHA, the state or local governments, or private foundation. And some examples of that are the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program, home or CDBG funds, or either private foundations. Then the second critical element we were looking at are the operating subsidy, which is coming from 100% from HUD, and through either the PRA directly assisted or through leveraging of project-based vouchers from the public housing side. And then the third critical element is support services. Either the state Medicaid agency or the state Human Service Agency would be a partner with the housing agency. And then some of the examples of the program that some of the maybe the target populations may be coming from are either from Money Follows the Person demonstration program, or those who are qualified for your home and community-based waiver services, state plan services, or the rehab options. So those are kind of like a big picture of everything. So where are we at now in the program? At this point, we've leased almost like 300 tenants have moved in. We have about 800 units under contract, 797 units in the pipeline being ready for PRA. And out of our first round of grantees, they have identified about 1,600 units. So that's almost 70% of the units identified in the program from the first round. So we're really on target at this point. Some of the things now, where are tenants coming from within the program? As we look through, we ensure that our grantees are reporting, and this is the information we get from our quarterly reports, such as 44% of the tenants are coming from institutions or were at risk of being institutionalized. 40% were either homeless or at risk of homeless. 9% were either group homes or similar. And then that 7% is a small percentage are either coming, maybe they were living at home with their parents or family members or other types of housing they transferred from. And at this point in the program, we've seen pretty much a lot of stability. We've only had about 8% of the residents exit from the program.
That's fantastic, and thanks for the overview. You know, this is a brand new program when Congress overhauled it, and I think that we knew that there were a lot of things that we were trying to do differently, and that there were going to be some challenges ahead. But it was designed to be a way not only to spur the creation of more housing, but also to do it in a way that would be very integrated. And for the first time ever, to really make sure that the relationship between the people that were creating the housing and the Medicaid folks who brought the services, that partnership would work well so that the services would be there with folks. So let's turn to our friends that are here who've been doing the work. You are where the HUD rubber meets the road, if you will. And so I want to just start, Elaine, with you. So what is it that you can tell us about the way that the program operates in Maryland?
We have a very strong relationship with, or as Katina said, we first had to have a interagency agreement with our Medicaid agency. So we have a triple relationship. We have the Department of Housing and Community Development. We also have, in our interagency agreement, it is also with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, which is our Medicaid agency. And Maryland has a special state agency, a governor's level department called the Maryland Department of Disabilities. And so they are, we've been working together with them for several years, even prior to 8/11, the first NOFA coming out. So we've developed a very strong relationship. And out of that relationship, we formed the Maryland Partnership of Affordable Housing. And in that agency, it's an advisory group with the 3 state agencies, but it also includes any stakeholders, other foundations, nonprofits that are working with persons with disabilities, and also consumers are also on the advisory group. So we listen, we meet regularly, and we've been working together a long time to develop this program. So we felt we were really ready when the 8/11 NOFA first came out to really put our best foot forward. The Weinberg Foundation, prior to 8/11, awarded the state $2 million to provide housing for persons with disabilities. It's a capital program. It's not a rental assistance program, but we are now we're in our second grant with them for an additional $2 million, and we're able to house people without rental assistance down to 10% of AMI.
Wow. Well, all that preparation really paid off because you all competed well in both the 12 and the 13 awards. You want to talk a little bit about just the size of your awards?
The first award in 12, we received $10.9 million to create 150 units. And if anybody knows the Baltimore metro region, that first grant was really focused on the Baltimore, D.C. metro area. We felt that that was based on what our partners were saying, that was where the most need was. Our second grant, we were awarded just under $10 million to create another 150 units. And that is, we're able to fund units all over the state of Maryland with that grant. So we were able to open it up to more rural areas, to the western part, the mountains, and into people who are on the eastern shore. And so we have 4 targeted populations that we service. First is folks that are institutionalized Medicaid recipients, so usually monies follows the persons. We use our second population are persons at risk of institutionalization. The third population were people exiting group homes or developmentally disabled systems. We have people who are homeless is our fourth. And then we have a catch-all population that, you know, we do allow other people into the system if they need assistance.
I like the catch-all category because I know I've talked to some states and they were more narrow in terms of picking one category or the other, and it's given them a smaller pool of people from which to select residents for units as they come online. So I like the way that you approached it.
We
broadly.
did, and what that did was right now there's about 1,600 people on our wait list in Maryland for all of our programs, but that's a lot of people, you know, with 300 units that we have money for. So there's definitely a need.
A need for more. Can you talk a little bit about where you're at in terms of implementation?
Right now we have identified 125 units. 21 are leased. Kathy Ebner is one of our developers that their unit is already leased, and we have 3 more properties that are in the lease-up stage now that have ARACs. So we're working hard to get those all leased in the next couple of months. And then we have more units coming online as we work forward.
In terms of implementation, are you where you want to be? I mean, development takes a while. These things are new, they take a while.
In both of our NOFAs, we anticipated a portion of our units coming from units that are already in the low-income housing tax credit portfolio at the department. I think we have found it a little difficult to attract property owners, management companies to the 811 program. All of our projects that have been that we have ARACs on or RACs are new construction. Okay. So the existing properties are a little challenging, but through MPA we are establishing which is the Maryland Affordable.
Okay, got it.
It's an acronym.
Yeah, everything's an acronym. With our advocacy group, we are going to establish a relationship so that we can start looking at properties that are in the portfolio, reaching out to more developers, see if we can get more units that are already existing. But Maryland has a very strong rental portfolio right now, and there's not a lot of properties that have vacancies.
Right.
So, but we're working at it. We're pushing as much as we can.
As I've had an opportunity to talk to states that are working with 811 programs, some states started with just existing tax credit properties, but then they found that these units are slow to turn over because of the rental market. I haven't been in a single market lately where somebody said the rental market was soft.
Right.
And some folks who committed it from the get-go to tying it to new development, knowing that new development is slow and it takes time to do it. It kind of seems in some ways that slower path of new development has actually been kind of the more steady path to getting the units over time, but that you're still looking to figure out how to do both.
We are still looking to figure out how to do both.
So let me turn it over. Kathy, thank you so much for coming in to be here today and really talking about it. I mean, I know that that this is your first foray into doing this with a brand new program, so just very curious to hear about your experience. Tell me a little bit about your property and the Section 811 PRA units that you have there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to be here, and we certainly value our partnership with the state agency, State Housing Agency. Homes for America, we are a regional nonprofit housing developer, and in the 23 years that we've been in existence, we developed 75 communities, about 6,000 apartments. And we really do have a deep commitment to housing persons with disabilities. We have several special needs communities within our portfolio, and about 14% of our portfolio is occupied by persons with disabilities. And Berger Square is no exception. We just recently partnered with 2 other organizations and completed construction on the building in June of 2016. The community consists of 48 2-bedroom apartments, and it's located in Odenton, Maryland, which is a suburb of Baltimore, and it's considered a high opportunity area. So it's an area with low amount of poverty, some good employment opportunities and great schools. The community, the tax credit apartments are restricted to households earning 60% of area median income and below. So the community really provides a nice mixed income community for the Section 811 residents. Of the 48 apartments, 8 of them are restricted to the Section 811 program participants.
In the Berger.
Yeah,
Right.
in Berger Square. So yeah, we have, we're recently just leased up. As I said, we finished construction in June, so our residents, or our Section 811 residents, have been residing there for about 4 or 5 months.
So tell me something about the tenants that are getting housing.
Well, all of them are single-parent households. So with all 8 of our households, we have children residing in the apartments, and we're really happy about that. One of the households is a male head of household. The other 7 are female. All of them come from very transitional facilities. I think we have 1 or 2 that were actually homeless before residing there. And they're thrilled to be there. They really are very thrilled to be there. In fact, I was talking with the property manager in preparation for being here today, and she shared with me a story where she was talking with one of the residents who literally had tears in her eyes, and she said she never thought she'd see the day to have this place as nice as Berger Square. And she told the property manager that she's no longer ashamed of where she lives, and she said that it feels like a mansion. Wow. So that makes us feel great, and that's exactly what we're all about. So
yeah, there's another photo that you brought along, this other property called Riverwoods. Did you want to talk about that as well?
Riverwoods at Tollgate.
Okay.
It is also in a community of opportunity. It is, it's very nice property. There's 13 units, all completely filled. One's in 2 bedrooms. Some did, I think 7 of those units were housed by persons who were formerly homeless, of the 13. People love it. That was leased last year around Christmas. So it offered some challenges, but people have lived there for a year now. Wow. And are happy and have re-signed their leases and have worked through their issues. And I think everyone's pleased with the way the program is working.
Yeah, I'm really struck by how beautiful these properties are. And whether it's work helping people who have been homeless come off the streets or out of shelter, or people who have been in institutions, if you really think about the setting that people are in when they're in institutions or when they're on the streets, in many ways it can be very dehumanizing. Yeah. And I think having an opportunity to live in a home like you and I would call a home, and that recovery and being able to integrate in the community is so much about self-worth and believing that we are worth a life like our neighbors. It's just so important. So I just want to thank you for the attention to that in the development of these units.
I think one of the things with Kathy's project that I was really interested in is that, as Kathy said, that all of the residents have children, but several of these residents were institutionalized, so they did not have their children with them. 5 of the residents actually were living in a group home, so they did not have their children with them. And so this program allowed these families to be reunified, which is really important.
Yes.
It's important for the children so that they're back with their parents. And the parents are able to feel like they're parenting. So I think it's important.
It does require an adjustment, though, for the residents, coming from that type of setting previously and now living in this wonderful brand new community, being reunited with their children. So that's one thing that we have observed, that it has required some time and attention helping the residents to adjust. And that's something that I would say for anyone, any developer that wishes to participate in the program, is to be aware that that will take some time to assist. We're really fortunate in that one of the organizations, and we purposely did this, that we partner with to develop Berger Square, is an organization that is an ARC organization, the ARC of the Chesapeake region. And so they are able to offer some information and referral services, which we expect to be able to take advantage of. And then also, in the state of Maryland, we just have this terrific relationship that Elaine was talking about with Maryland Department of Disabilities and MDHH, and they too, can provide resources and help.
Can you talk a little bit about that part in terms of how it is that tenants get selected for units, and how it is that the state disability and mental, I love the term mental hygiene,
Health and mental health.
how those services are there for people as they're making these transitions?
In Maryland, we have the Maryland Department of Disabilities has developed a tracking system where individual case managers start working with their clients, either start marketing the program in the nursing homes or with homeless providers or anywhere that have MFP.
Money follows the person.
Money follows the person, and they are able to log them into the system. The client is able to say where they would like to live, what type of unit they need. So that's how our wait list gets developed. In Maryland, the properties come through the Department of Housing and Community Development, and we work with the developers. They are incentivized through the QAP and the guide for our tax credit program. And they choose initially to just say, if accepted, I will take 811. That's all they have to say. And then if that project receives an allocation, we start working with them early on in the process. So we have learned lessons from our first property to the next property. And we were able to go to Kathy's or to Homes for America and with their architect and their contractor to say, we learned that several of these residents, and we don't know who they're going to be, may need roll-in showers. We do that early on in the construction process so that they're able to incorporate that into the construction of the unit. So they were able to develop several units with roll-in showers.
That's great.
And so that's how that starts to work. As we start looking at when the project is ready to lease. We work with the developer, their management company, a representative from the Department of Housing and Community Development, from the Maryland Department of Disabilities, from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and we work early on in the process. We develop their tenant selection plan with them. We work through any issues. We talk weekly. as the lease-up process starts. And then as the unit, so then they would start looking at who's on the wait list that said they would like to live in the area where Berger Square was located. So then, who wants to do that? We give them their tenant provider, their case manager will start working with them on the application to the property. They compile all of the information they need, their Social Security. Will they need a reasonable accommodation? Anything that had to assist them to getting into the unit.
And you're doing that in partnership with your state disability
We're all
and mental
together.
health folks, all working
We
together all
all
the time.
work together weekly on the call.
So how does that play out in terms of, I mean, I know you're the owner, you work with another property management firm. That's
correct.
But I mean, if things aren't going well, you're going to be the first person to hear, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I mean, so how has that played out in
Well,
terms of?
and we're on the call as well.
Right,
Yeah,
okay,
so
okay.
it's a humongous group effort, and that really has been very wonderful. And you can feel that partnership, between everyone, and it's still there. It's not because the residents have now moved in that everyone's disappeared. Everyone is still there, and that, I guess that was the point I'm making, is that, it takes a lot of time and attention right from the beginning all the way through, and that has just been, very valuable and very important in terms of participating in the program.
I appreciate these great stories, but are there unique challenges that you're encountering or that you've encountered along the way that you had to figure out how to overcome or that you're struggling with right now and trying to figure out how to solve? Ask that of either of you.
Yeah, we, like I said, we just completed construction 6 months ago, so we're sort of brand new into this, and I mean, so far, so remarkably well. Right as Elaine described, right from the beginning, the lease up just went very, very well, and residents are very happy. So, nothing yet.
I'll come back to you in a moment. But just so what's your pitch to other organizations that create this or people that are managing properties that got tax credits a long time ago? What's your pitch for why
About
it is
why
that
they
other
should
folks
participate. Well, first of all, for us being a mission-based nonprofit organization, it's part of what we do. Serving persons with disabilities, and so I think certainly any organization that has a mission, this program is a slam dunk in many ways because it does provide such great, valuable partnerships with the State Housing Agency and Maryland Department of Disabilities and MDHH. And so that it's a win-win, right? So we're, as an organization, are able to meet our mission and have this great partnership doing it. And, the rental subsidies, that helps too, right? So
I think one of the most important things that Congress directed and HUD does with this program is making sure that we're there with that deep subsidy. What about the challenges at the state level?
Again, I think the first one is finding enough units, not new construction, but existing properties. I think for us, the challenge is not that we can't find, we're not going to have enough properties, we're not going to have enough residents, but the challenge is to keep the momentum going. And I think going forward, making sure that the subsidies are there or past the initial 5-year period. That's a challenge. We try to make sure everyone understands that's what HUD anticipates, that's what we want, that's what they want, so just know that it's going to happen. But, discussing that with some developers, they're not as sure.
One of the reasons that we really have been paying close attention to the experience of states doing this is that we really do know that person by person who's moving in, project by project as it comes to fruition, there's some really great stories out there, and that this really is designed to work. And that's an important story to be able to tell as people make decisions not only about the renewals on the existing units, but also on the opportunity to get future funding to be able to do more of this. I'm interested, Katina, how does the story that we're hearing from folks in Maryland reflect on what it is that you're hearing from other states?
Well, it's very typical. I mean, with the challenges with finding units and getting owners interested in the program, they're not as comfortable with just having the 5-year and the long-term contracts. So this is very typical. But also, in a way, Maryland has also demonstrated they have strong partnerships, and we've seen that with those grantees who do have that same strong partnership, that they're doing the work, or if they have a previous experience, that they are doing better within the program. And so also being able to address your challenges very early. I think Maryland has demonstrated that they have a close working relationship. They're able to address these challenges head on, and we've seen progress. And so for those grantees that have done that, we've seen that it's very typical experience. But we also don't want each state to be just alike. We also, like I said earlier, is for them to come up with innovative strategies, to be different, to do this program in a different way. And we won't have just one model, but very many successful models within the program.
It's one of the great things about building it off of the low-income housing tax credit, which is a program that is used to being operated to reflect the character of the communities in which it operates. I know that you have thought a bit about what lessons we're learning along the way. What else would you like to share?
I also think that we've had like one of the early lessons is the partnerships. That was one lesson we learned. Another thing is identifying units have been another lesson that we thought that doing existing units would be the easiest to fill PRA units, but we're learning that new construction is probably where most of our units going to end up coming from. I mean, we're tight rental markets in many states have said this, that there isn't a lot of rental markets available and we want them to leverage as much as possible the lower amount of rents, but every owner is not on board with that. So having rents probably higher than what we expected, which will give us a lot of units, but not as many as we expect. So we've thought about these challenges, and that's some of the early lessons that we've learned.
So what's coming up next in terms of the work that HUD is going to be doing to support this program and these grantees?
So the thing that we really, to try to keep everyone focused on this program and in the buy-in, I've created a work group with people from different offices so we can discuss head on maybe some of the challenges and also ensure that we're highlighting also the success stories. We're starting to look at some of those stories. We're gonna capture them. We're going to put them up on our HUD Exchange website so we can not only internally address the challenges, but ensure that we're also promoting the program and saying that this could be a successful model.
I know just from some of the conversations that I've had with states that, you've got some property managers who aren't used to using the HUD systems, and there's a lot of that just needs to kind of be worked through in getting everybody to a place where they feel the success of the program. And I'm looking forward to hearing how the work group, how states can support one another and how the developers can support one another and figuring out how to solve for these. Because I think one of the things that's been really clear to me as I've talked to states is that it's not like there's a couple challenges that are uniformly shared across the boards, and there really are some great success stories that are coming out of this. And so to make sure that the states that are getting it done and the developers and the property managers who are seeing it work can help share how they got through those things in order to make this a widespread success around the country. So final words. Kathy, is there anything else that you want to add to this before we close off here today?
No, except to say that our experience with the program has been extremely positive. Suffice it to say, I mean it's gone remarkably well, and I do credit that to the partnership that has been formed with the state housing agency and the right agencies within the state to, from the very beginning, work closely together to make sure that we're doing it right. And so far, so good.
That's great. Elaine, anything you want to add?
I think I want to thank you for having me today. I did not do that earlier, but
You wanted to see how I was going to go first.
I think so. I think the lessons we learned is that we can rely on our developers and our management companies in Maryland to step up. I think we also learned that our interagency and our advisory group, we trust each other. I think that's really important, that we talk to each other all of the time. And I think that's the thing that I've learned from this whole process, that you must have your partners and trust your partners.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure that it's a relief to the developer partners to be able to trust that the state agencies are working hard together to make it work as well.
Yes.
Anything that you want to add from your perspective to this?
I would just, like to thank everyone for their hard work and getting this program off the ground. It's been a lot of challenges. It's been kind of a long, arduous process, but I think we're really starting to get into a groove, and we're starting to see those lease ups. And I think we'll definitely start, we almost met our goal this year. We're just shy of it. And this year, I definitely think we will meet that.
That's great to hear. Creating supportive housing has never been a slam dunk. It's never been an easy process. There's so much that needs to come together. And, getting a new program up and running is never an easy thing to do. But what makes me very excited about the work that we've done on this is that, one, we're creating more integrated housing opportunities for individuals with disabilities, that we're working to get people out of institutions and off the street, and really just the visual of what some of these units look like. I mean, life-changing opportunities for people who have had a pretty tough go of it. But also, I think that these partnerships have the opportunity to bring the Medicaid programs and the disability programs into a broader reach of the housing that's out there, whether it's HUD-assisted housing or other low-income housing tax credit properties, in order to really help us think about how we provide the types of services and supports that people need to live successfully in the community. So I just want to stop by saying thank you very much for making time to come and be with us today. Thank you, Katina, you and your team, not only for putting this webinar together, but for the perseverance that you've shown in bringing this program to where it is. And I'm looking forward to the day that we celebrate a move-in for every unit that was designated in these programs. And for our audience, thank you so much for taking time to hear about not only what are we doing between HUD and HHS on this critical partnership, but specifically what are we doing with the Section 811 project rental assistance. So thank you very much.